This video is going to be an overview of the current developments in the Jupyter ecosystem. To give more context, this is a follow-up to a presentation I gave at the Jupyter Open Studio Day that was in New York City on April 29th, and it was an in-person event, and I figured it was a good time to maybe show a little bit what was happening currently in Jupyter and the various sub-projects, and people found it useful. So it was not recorded there, so that's why I'm kind of deciding to do a little bit little run of that presentation again, just like this, in very kind of raw manner. So yeah, we can at least have it logged somewhere. It's going to be more of a kind of snapshot of what has been happening lately in the ecosystem as of 2024. So for this I prepared a notebook with a bunch of details on the sub-projects, and I think we could just get started, and we should just going through the notebook, and then I will show you a couple of cool things. So first of all, the Jupyter ecosystem is pretty big. It's been growing over the years, and now it's getting more and more complex in a way, because there are many different sub-projects and there are also many different libraries. And because of this, last year with Johan, we decided to do a talk and speak about the Jupyter landscape. So that talk is now available on YouTube. So if you want, you can go and check it out. I will give you a bit more like details on all of different blocks that are part of the Jupyter ecosystem. And that may be useful to watch before continuing watching this presentation here, because you will maybe understand a few things a little bit more, I would say. So maybe you can start with a quick update on Jupyter Lab. So Jupyter Lab is now the version 4.1. It's the latest stable release. And 4.1 added support for making diagrams in Markdown, and more precisely mermaid diagrams. So here, if you double click on this Markdown cell, and we see that there is this diagram in text format here, and when we execute the cell, it's just converted in this nice looking diagram. Which is nice because it was a feature that was requested for a while, and also it matching with the GitHub flavored Markdown. So again, like, it's a really powerful tool for your notebooks, especially if you use a lot of Markdown cells. As part of the new features in 4.1, we also got the inline compiler, and the inline compiler is actually, what landed in Jupyter Lab is more of an API for using the inline compiler, and that API can be used in extensions and plugins, so that they can implement for something like a GitHub Copilot, but for notebooks, or something using this API, but like fetching suggestions, for example, from remote services, remote providers. But there is still a little bit of functionality by default in Jupyter Lab for using this inline provider. So let's say I have this okay, this warning, just bear with me, I don't know, there was just a previous execution state of this notebook, but yeah, never mind. So if I execute this cell and I go to the next cell here, where I have this almost the same function that's defined before, but then I start typing the next letter, I see that there is this ghost text here that shows up, and It's really the same almost like as in VS Code with GitHub Copilot or with other IDEs that have implemented this. And I can accept the suggestion with a keyboard shortcut. In that case, it's Alt-N, and it auto completes the code, which is nice. But it's very simple, but at least it's there. It could be useful in some cases. So yeah, that's the inline completer, at least in its basic form. Then we also had support for opening files from tracebacks. And here, if I take this example here, actually maybe I will open it in Jupyter App interface. That will be a bit better. So here we're currently using the Notebook 7 interface because it's nice for presentation. It's just a notebook, but with Jupyter Lab, let's do that here. So I'm going to remove this. The notebook is where here. Yeah, so if I execute this, it doesn't work because my custom module is defining some diff function here. And now in Jupyter Lab 4.1, I can click on this file here and it opens this file. So let me do it again. I close it, and here if I click here, I'm directly ending on where the error took place, which is quite useful. It's like if you have errors in your code. Okay, so next thing I can show you maybe directly from here is the error indicator in the table of contents. So here we have the table of contents, and we see that the cells I was talking about now has this little sign here on the side, and I can click on it, and it's just pointing to the code cell that had the issue. So it's quite useful too. There is a new plugin manager, so you can actually get it from let me see, is it from here? Yes, but maybe it would be better to do it from here, the command palette, and I type plugin, and I see this table here, and this is the list of plugins that are part of Jupyter Lab. So you can see Jupyter Lab has just a collection of plugins, and with this little widget here, it's really nice because you see everything that is currently being used by the Jupyter Lab that you're currently using. And you can, for example, disable some functionalities if you don't want some of them, or just if you are curious about what is under the hood. That can also be useful. In Jupyter Lab 4.1, there is also a new virtual scroll bar for notebooks in a window mode, and it can be enabled here using this little icon on top right, and you get this mini map here, and you can actually click on cells, and it jumps directly to the cell number, which is it's kind of nice because if you want to just have an idea of how many cells you have on your notebook, then at least you get numbers. But you can also just click on the cells to jump to a particular place in the notebook. Okay, so next we have Jupyter Lab 4.2. So for example, this Jupyter Lab is the first RC of Jupyter 4.2, so that I'm currently using for the demo. Yeah, so this one is also coming with many new features. The first one on the list here is the workspace UI. So if you go to this tab here and click on workspace, you see that you can just check the workspaces you have on your machine, because before the workspaces were only visible via the command line interface, but now they are also available in the UI, which is quite convenient. There is also a recently closed panel here. So the file we were looking at before, I can also now click on it from here, and it opens directly, which is quite nice. And there is also this Control Alt A shortcut that you can use to quickly go to, for example, a file or a kernel or a notebook. So yeah. The full notebook windowing mode, that's what we just saw before, but now in 4.2 it's going to be enabled by default. And in 4.1 it was still not by default, it was opt-in. You had to go to the settings to enable it, but here it's there by default because you get better performance, and it's gonna stay a default unless someone or some users can report issues, but so far it has not been the case. So it's looking good on that side. There's been some work on the shortcuts editor, and there is also a new theme, and the theme is the dark high contrast, and it's maybe not fully finished yet to be an accessible theme, but it's there already, and it's shipping in 4.2, so that because people can then start using it and kind of give some feedback on this, and maybe it will still be useful in its current form. So yeah, that's a new theme. Okay, then we have Notebook 7. So Notebook 7 is this interface here that we are looking at. So let me go back to this notebook here. So maybe we don't need to have it open here anymore. So we can continue in Notebook 7 interface. Yeah, so Notebook 7 is like a rebuild of Jupyter Lab. So it's like a Jupyter Lab remix. So it's using Jupyter Lab components. It looks a lot like Jupyter Lab, and it really follows the Jupyter Lab release cycle and features. So like the mermaid diagrams we saw earlier, they are also working here, and many other features are just inherited directly from Jupyter Lab, just because the way Notebook 7 is built. 7.1 was released in February 2024 this year, and 7.2 is going to be released very soon after Jupyter Lab, so very likely in May 2024. Okay, so that was the Notebook 7 and Jupyter Labs, two main web-based Jupyter frontends, but it's also worth talking about Jupyter Lab Desktop, which was initially released in September 2021. And Jupyter Lab Desktop lets you use Jupyter Lab, but from a desktop app directly, which is very nice too, because some folks just prefer to have desktop apps for working with notebooks or data or Python, and Jupyter Lab Desktop really meets that need, and you can see it a little bit like a VS Code or PyCharm. You will have like this app installed on your machine. You just click on the button on the launcher, and then it starts your Jupyter Lab. Yeah, so it's pretty much the same as Jupyter Lab, but packaged a little bit differently, and it can be installed on Mac, Windows, Linux, and yeah, I think it's also updated to 4.1, and it's going to be following the 4.2 release also a few days or weeks afterwards, after the release. And recently there was some work on the UI modes, so now there is, for example, a Zen mode. You can just have a notebook in Jupyter Lab, which looks pretty neat and sleek, because then you can just focus on the notebook, a little bit like on Notebook 7 here, but again, it's like this desktop app. So yeah, that's also quite nice. Okay, so another project as part of the Jupyter ecosystem is Voila. So Voila is a tool to convert your notebooks to dashboards. interactive dashboard. So here we have a screenshot of Voila using the Voila Beautify template, and you can show like graphs, interactive diagrams, and so on, and have users interact with your notebooks. And it was released in 2024 in August. Now it's one of the new things in Voila 0.5 is that it's built as a Jupyter Lab application. That means that it's reusing the same plugin system as in Jupyter Lab, and it's compatible with, for example, the themes. This one is a third-party theme called Miami Nights, and it works in Voila. And it's also compatible with MIME types and MIME renders, such as the GeoJSON and also the FASTA renders, which are the same as the ones you can find in Jupyter Lab. And the tree page is also using the Jupyter Lab file browser by default, which is also nice to have a consistent look and feel between all of these different Jupyter frontends. So it is like Jupyter Lab, Jupyter Notebook 7, Jupyter Lab Desktop, and Voila. So yeah, that is all for Voila. There is now the Jupyter Widget subproject. So widget is something like this. So if I take this cell, create a slider, and I create another view of the slider, and I can interact with them, and the state is synced. So that's pretty much a widget. It gives you this nice interactive components directly in Notebook. And the latest version of IPyWidgets is IPyWidgets 8 as of today. It was released in August 2022. It took a couple of years to release. It was a pretty big release, and there are now a few more widgets shipped by default in IPyWidgets, but there are many streams of work to improve the actual internals of IPyWidgets, so it make it a bit more decoupled with internal components, and make it easier to reuse in other deployment scenarios, such as Jupyter Lite, or places where it's not possible to depend on IPykernel, for example. But really, like the most interesting thing today with IPyWidgets is really the whole ecosystem around widgets, and what people have been building with custom Jupyter widgets. So it's going to be a bit difficult to make a list of all of the widgets available and show them all. So there are just so many of them. But here I picked IPyLeaflet because it's one that had released recently. So with IPyLeaflet you get a map like this in your notebook. And the new release, I think they changed this library that lets you draw like shapes on a map like this. So it's quite cool to see that you can do this from a notebook. So yeah, that's just an example among many. And another project that is part of this whole Jupyter widgets ecosystem is called AnyWidget. And AnyWidget builds on top of Jupyter widgets, but it makes authoring widgets a little bit simpler than what the current templates and documentation in IPyWidgets show, which is really good, because it really lowers the bar for like being able to author a Jupyter widget. So here you see you can even work on a widget directly from Jupyter Lab in the notebook, and then you need the files, like the JavaScript file or the CSS file, and see the changes directly reloaded on the page without having to refresh it. So that's quite nice. And there's been many widgets now built on any widget as a framework. They started actually started listing them on a gallery. So if you're also interested in making a widget yourself, it could be useful to go and check it out to just get some inspiration and see what people have been doing with any widget. So we'll see how it goes in the coming weeks, months. Maybe it would be useful to place or to recommend maybe using any widget for custom widget development, or make the project a bit more visible, or maybe yeah, integrate it in the docs in general, like Jupyter docs, so that this project has more visibility and people are make it's a bit easier for them to find it, pretty much. Yeah. Okay, so another, yeah, okay, maybe we can just have one more example of a widget. This one is it's called IPy-LGBST. It stands for IPy Lego Boost, and Lego Boost is a library that you can use to control robots via web Bluetooth. And here I have a screencast, and you see that there's a little robot here, and then there is the notebook behind, and it's sending commands to the robot. And here is like the screen recording of the robot actually moving based on what is happening in the notebook. So you can do things like this with a widget, which is also nice. So yeah, just giving you some ideas. Okay, so I think we covered most of the kind of user-facing UI or kind of focused parts of Jupyter. But in Jupyter there is also plenty of components that are more on the back end. Things are a bit more invisible to the end user. And one of the sub-projects is Jupyter Server, which is a server that gives you the notebook UIs such as Jupyter Lab or Notebook 7. And for Jupyter Server, the last release was Jupyter Server 2. In December 2022 was the release, I think. And this release focused mostly on adding new features and APIs to Jupyter Server itself, so that extensions can leverage them to more things, or have like more flexibility on how to, for example, work with identity or authorization. So these two new APIs were added to Jupyter Server. There is also a new event system API, which is also useful in case you want to have like events propagated from a server to another part of the application, and then maybe plug your telemetry on this. So also still via extensions. So in Jupyter Server, the work has been more on making this usable APIs from extensions, and of course making bug fixes and still maintaining the project, obviously. But Jupyter Server is also home of some server extensions, such as the Jupyter Scheduler, so they can use to schedule jobs, for example using a cron expression. But there is also the resource usage extension, so you know how much memory or CPU your notebook is currently using. And also all of the packages in the RTC stack are also hosted under the Jupyter Server, at least the backend part of the RTC stack. Then we have the Jupyverse, which was released in 2021, and it's an alternative to Jupyter Server, and it redefines a little bit what Jupyter Server is and what it should do. And the main difference compared to Jupyter Server is that it's plugin based, a little bit like Jupyter Lab, in a way that you have like a plugin for managing kernels, a plugin for managing the contents, and it makes it a bit easier to, let's say, if you want to have a Jupyter server that is only providing one or two functionalities, then you can just have a Jupyterverse with one or two plugins. Or you can even add more plugins to it if you would like to have to add more functionalities to this server. So it's also nice to have Jupyterverse as part of this Jupyter server sub-project, because it's a way to challenge a little bit some features and functionalities that have been in the Jupyter server for a long time that might be challenged by the new approaches, especially also related to the work in RTC, such as like how the notebook is executed and the steps are executed, whether it's a server, whether it's directly in a kernel, so these kind of questions. So speaking of servers and kernels, there is also some work happening there around concurrent kernel execution. So being able to maybe run cells for example, a cell is taking a long time to execute, but you still want to run another cell, then having a way to do this would be useful. So currently it's not possible via the Jupyter protocol, but there's been some work on trying to allow for this. Also for async kernel execution, which is a little bit related to this, and some work on the new kernels based on XUS also, such as XUS Ruby and XUS CPP. So CPP stands for C++, yes, for running C++ in a notebook. Yeah, that's it for servers and kernels, very brief. So in Jupyter, there is also Jupyter Hub, and the latest version as of today is Jupyter Hub 4, released in April 2023, but Jupyter 5 is coming soon. I think currently there is a beta available, and the main developments have been around improving how roles and permissions work in Jupyter Hub, especially let's say you have a server in your hub, you want to share with someone, or you want to let someone access your server or execute code there. Like, how does that work? How is that supposed to work? Especially when it comes to security, and also making sure that someone cannot harm your machine or your data. So Jupyter Hub lets you configure a lot of this, and there is also a way to use RTC, so real-time collaboration in Hub via the Jupyter Lab interface, and I think next session will be RTC. Yeah, so that's it for Hub. I think there is more coming in version 5, and of course they're still under heavy development. So Jupyter real-time collaboration, so it stands for such long form of RTC. If you look at this screencast, you can see that it's a little bit like having a Google Doc, but for notebooks. And currently it's packaged and distributed via this Jupyter collaboration package, and it was initially released in 2023, almost at the same time as Jupyter 4.0 release. And the recent developments on this project have been server-side execution, which is instead of having to follow the traditional Jupyter protocol and send requests to execute code in a kernel, instead the code is executed directly on the server. So this is still experimental in Jupyter collaboration, because it landed just maybe a a few weeks ago, maybe even less. So it's new, but it will help solve issues, long-standing issues that people have been having when using notebooks. Let's say you execute a cell and it generates outputs, and then you close the tab or you reload the page, and then the output is gone and the cell is still running, the code is still running. Let's say it's taking 5 minutes to complete. But the problem is that there is no way to recover from the outputs. Let's say that the outputs were generating like a print every second or so. There's no way to do this. But if the execution happens server side, then there is a way to know, like the server knows where we are in terms of execution, and also it's able to propagate this change to the different clients. In a way, it looks like being able to resume the current execution of a cell and see its output. So yeah, that is under development. RTC also changes a little bit the current Jupyter architecture, like we were talking about just now with how the code is executed. It raises some questions on where things should be executed, and if the protocol works well with the current way RTC is implemented. So this is still more like of an open question, and more like some kind of guideline for thinking about this feature in the long run. So yeah, some more work on fixing bugs, and also on working on new UX and the UI for making suggestions to a notebook, and also commenting on a notebook. So this is also happening at the moment. I wanted to also quickly mention Jupyter Cat, which is a tool that lets you do 3D geometry modeling and everything in a collaborative environment. So it's a JupyterLab remix, and that means you can use JupyterLab extensions, and it looks a bit like JupyterLab, but it's a different application, and it's really tailored for like 3D modeling. So if you are into this world, then you will kind of feel familiar with existing tools that already let you do this. And it's also using the RTC stack that we just saw, so it's nicely integrated with the stack, part of the stack of the Jupyter. Okay, so now we have time also to talk a little bit about some JupyterLab extensions. So there's been some work on the Rise and MB Grader, and they were graded for JupyterLab and Notebook 7. JupyterLab LSP is still also under development. And LSP is this extension that gives you some nice completions. So for example, if you import a module and then you do a dot and then press tab, then you get different suggestions here, a little bit like in a real IDE. Then we have Jupyter AI. So as you might guess, this has to do with everything generative UI in Jupyter. And if you look at this screenshot, you see the chat here on the left, and it can actually chat with an AI assistant called the Jupyter Note, and you can use this to generate notebooks and also generate code directly in the cells. And one of the main features of Jupyter AI is that it's really vendor agnostic. So doesn't choose one AI provider by default or one model. So it's not only OpenAI and with GPT, but it lets you choose the models you want and configure them. So it could also be like Amazon Bedrocks, for example, or really anything, or even a model running locally on your machine using Olama, for example. So you have full control on where your data goes. So it could also be made so that it runs fully offline, as long as you can run the models on your machine. And yeah, it's really great because, especially for privacy reasons, so the data is not leaked to really third-party services. You don't really know what to do with your data. So yeah, so Jupyter AI really lets you configure all of this. So I think it's a really great alternative to all of the other current offerings when it comes to AI in 2024. Okay, so the Jupyter Accessibility is also a sub-project as part of Jupyter. It's its own sub-project, and the goal is to make Jupyter accessible. And it's not an easy task. So as of today, Jupyter is still not fully accessible, and it's been an issue for almost the beginning, I would say, because even before with the classic notebook it was even worse. But there's been some incremental improvements, so some of them are technical. Code Mirror was updated in JupyterLab 4 to version 6, and that already improved things a little bit in terms of accessibility. But since then there's been some work, continuous improvements in JupyterLab and also Notebook 7. And really the goal here is to provide at least one accessible notebook offering to the Jupyter community. And the main focus as of today, 2024, maybe later, still will be making Notebook 7 the accessible notebook offering, because compared to JupyterLab, you see that Notebook 7 is a little bit less complicated, has less elements on the screen to display, and it's in a way it's a little bit simpler. So that's why it's the focus for accessibility. But it's worth noting that there were a couple of articles published on the Jupyter blog, so if you're interested, you can go and check them out. They talk about what was improved recently in terms of accessibility in Jupyter. This one and also this one. Okay, and now we are arriving at the project called Jupyter Lite. So you see that we already covered quite a few things so far, and Jupyter Lite is it's like you take almost the whole Jupyter stack and you remix it in a way so that everything runs in a web browser. So we saw like the JupyterLab notebook interface. Well, with Jupyter Lite, it also means that the kernels themselves are running in a browser. So we end up with something like this, where everything in the web browser here, so the interface is here on the left, and the kernels on the right, running in a browser via WebAssembly. So that's quite a nice tool to have around, especially for demos. So maybe the best way to try it is to go to this website here, the Try Jupyter website, and you click on JupyterLab, and it spins a JupyterLab interface in just a couple of seconds, and you have a notebook, and you can start working with it and executing some code directly in the browser. So here I execute the cell, and it's going to create a plot after a while. Yeah, there you go. So with Jupyter we're currently on 0.3, version 0.3, which is based on Jupyter 4.1 and Notebook 7.1. It was released in March 2024. And 0.4 is going to be released soon after Jupyter 4.2 and Notebook 7.2 are released, so it's likely going to be in May or June this year. So what makes Jupyter interesting is that it can be easily embedded on other websites. One of the most famous examples as of today is the NumPy website, which has this little repo here. So you can go there on numpy.org and go to the console and start playing with the NumPy API and see it live. So that's quite useful. The SciPy docs, so the SciPy contributors have started to look into adding Jupyter to their documentation as well. So they have like interactive examples in their docs directly using a notebook, which is also pretty nice for like as a complement to the existing documentation and make it a little bit more alive, and so being able to also even change it if you want to try something slightly different than what is in the docs, at least in the example. So they are looking into adding this, and also recently I just saw this on GitHub that the IBIS project. So IBIS is this portable data frame library using Arrow underneath, and they also have one repo here powered by Jupyter to just be able to try their API and package in the browser, which is nice. We're seeing more and more of these on documentations websites for many of these projects. So yeah, it's quite useful to have. Okay, so still a little bit in the Jupyter world, but now kind of bridging again like the frontiers of where things are executed. So we saw earlier that this Voila project to turn a notebook into a dashboard, but now with Jupyter there is also the same thing, but with the kernel running in the browser directly, and it's called the project is called Voici. So here, if I play this little video, you see that you just click on this URL on the GitHub repo, and it's taking a few seconds to load the kernel, but it's downloading all of the assets and instantiating the kernel in the web page, and then executing the cells, and then showing you the dashboard here. So it's really just Voila for Jupyter and if you're interested, you can even maybe make your own dashboard if you would like to. So we're starting to compile a list of different examples here. Can be useful to people who want to get started with this. Yeah, the Voici gallery. Okay, so still in the kind of Jupyter related, executable books and Thebe are also leveraging now the fact that you can execute code in the browser using Jupyter. So the people behind these projects, they are also working on Miss Markdown, which is kind of a flavor of Markdown, very nice for making scientific publications, or like sharing work with other people on the internet via just a web page. And they made an integration with Mist and Jupyter Lite, so it looks like this. In the end, it produces a document that is fully interactive and really looks like a regular website. But when you, for example, move these sliders here, what happens is that some actual code and Python code is executed in a browser. So it's pretty cool because you can package some research or work you've been doing, and then just share it as a website and let people access it, and also just work, just try to reproduce your results like this. So yeah, really cool project too. Okay, so almost approaching the end, but it's also useful to talk a little bit about the Jupyter governance overall and what has been happening recently. So here I just showed kind of the recent activity in some of the sub-projects, but there has been some activity in other sub-projects that may not be in here in this presentation. So for example, the Jupyter security group has also been active recently, and also the social media strategy for Jupyter, who is responsible for reaching out to the community on, for example, on social media like LinkedIn or Twitter, Mastodon, and things like this. So yeah, there is also a new working group called Docs Working Group, focused on documentation, and the focus on this group is to try to consolidate the documentation we have about Jupyter. I try to make something that maybe is a bit more a bit easier for folks especially new to Jupyter, so they know where to find information, and also what the sub-projects are, what they do, why are there so many sub-projects, maybe where to ask questions in case they have any. So it's kind of this meta work, but it's still very useful to have. So this I think is a couple of months old and still ongoing. We also had a merge of Jupyter Lab and Notebook. So before, these two were separate projects, but now they are merged into a single Jupyter Frontends sub-project, which makes sense because now they are built using the same Jupyter Lab stack, so they are very not coupled together, but almost they are very related. So in a way to focus efforts on the lab stack, this merge was done recently. And finally, there's been some discussions around the proposal. So it's been a few weeks, I think, already, on whether to move Project Jupyter to the Linux Foundation. So currently it's under the NumFocus, which is also a place where all the projects in the PyData ecosystem are at the moment, and there has been some discussion on funding in general and how to achieve sustainability for a project like Jupyter, and secure some recurring funding for the project, and trying to make it less based on grants and sometimes a little bit of randomness also. So yeah, interesting discussions there too, a bit less technical than what we saw earlier, but still important. Okay, finally, I think that's the last slide. A quick word on community. So everything I presented here is the work of many people and many different sub-projects, and also the whole Jupyter community. So if you are interested in actually taking part of this work, joining the community, or just trying to contribute a little bit of your to some of the projects if you want to, then that would be absolutely welcome and super great. So feel free to come and join us. So maybe one resource is the Jupyter community calendar, which looks like this, and it lists the meetings that are available in a week, held by the sub projects. So there is one for the Jupyter frontends, hyperwidgets also, and voila, it's every 2 weeks. Jupyter Hub is every month. Accessibility is every 2 weeks. Jupyter Server is every week, followed by a collaboration hour, I think every 2 weeks. And then there is also the SSC meeting, which is also weekly. Yeah, and each sub-project has its own Team Compass repo, and you can go there and also see the activity on each of these sub-projects, and also just interact with or ask questions, directly opening issue and so on. So yeah, many resources online to see what is happening currently in the whole Jupyter ecosystem. In the case of Jupyter frontends, we also record the meetings and we publish them to YouTube. So if you just want to see what we talk about every week, or maybe you don't know what to expect from such meetings before coming, and maybe you want to see watch one of them first before actually come and talk with us as devs, then you can just go there and watch the videos directly on YouTube. So yeah, okay, I think that's it. It was already pretty long in the end, but there we have it, a quick overview of what has been happening in the Jupyter ecosystem lately as of 2024. So I hope you liked it. If you have any question or comments, feel free to post a comment here on YouTube, or you can also just go to the repos and maybe open an issue or a discussion if you prefer. There is also a discourse, a Jupyter discourse, if you want to have a more general discussion on anything related to Jupyter. Yeah. Okay, so that's it. That's the end. I will talk to you later. Bye bye.